Hey, and welcome back to the Dad Life. Today we have with us Drew coming all the way from the US to talk to us here in Vancouver. Drew, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good to see y'all.
Yeah, good to see you too. It's been a
Um,
while. We got sunshine here for you today. I don't know how it is for you guys down there.
Yeah, sunshine over here in the Bay Area, San Francisco. Just to clarify, since U.S. isn't just just so there's a lot. U.S. could be a lot of different places. So you're in California, Bay Area, San Francisco.
yeah,
Sunny
what's it like
California.
there?
Now, I hear, yeah, San Francisco is usually foggy though, I hear.
It can be. Yeah, I'm a little bit outside of San Francisco, so the fog little less, and it's actually very
Nice.
beautiful. The sun is out. It's one of the better days today.
Perfect. Well, welcome again, and I'm going to throw it over to Justin, my co-host,
All right.
or the
So
main
yeah,
host, I should say.
it's all good. Yeah, we're really excited to have Drew on the show today. Uh, we know Stu and I know Drew for he was a member while he is in San Francisco, and maybe he doesn't want to brag too much. He was a Vancouverite for a while, so has that under his belt. Um, so earlier this week when I was connecting with Drew and kind of getting things set up, and I said, "Hey man, like what beer you got in your fridge, for the show today that we could talk about?" He got back to me and he's like, Modelo, and I was like, "All right, cool, man." And so I fire off to Stu like, "Hey, we're drinking Modelo this week," and so Stu and I go off and we get some delicious Modelo. And Drew, can you
Yeah.
share us what you showed up with today? What did you show up with today?
Yeah, I was had my heart set on Modelo, and then I guess I drank too much. I ran out on the perfect time, the perfect storm. I'm not an alcoholic, and none. Don't worry,
Yeah,
guys. Um, but I yeah, so I
yeah.
looked in the
Drink
fridge this morning. I didn't
responsibly.
have any. Oh yes, especially in my field. We'll get into that more later, but um,
Yeah, a little bit later.
uh, yeah. So I didn't have any in my fridge, and I went to the local store to look for it, and they didn't have it. So I was like, "Oh man!" I texted Justin. I was like, "Hey man, I can't find Modelo." So I saw I just got my Stella. So I didn't have many options at the place that I
All right.
I was at. So I just picked the one that I felt like was I like the light I like the light beers.
Yeah.
The light lagers.
So you went from Mexican to French. So I mean, all right.
Belgian, in fact.
Oh, Belgian.
Yeah.
Oh,
If
my bad.
Stella
My
Moving
bad.
Artois is
on, moving
Belgian.
on, moving on down or moving on up.
You're very worldly. Yeah,
Uh,
worldly in your beers.
all right, gentlemen. Let's
So
let's raise
cheers,
a
cheers,
toast
bros.
here. I'm gonna put my delicious Modelo into a nice glass, because I'm not a Neanderthal. All right. Now I noticed
Cheers,
too.
all.
Cheers.
Cheers. Mm. Nothing like beer at
No,
midday before you get back to
Well,
work after
in
lunch.
Belgium.
it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so Drew, I got this question for you. Okay, so you live in California, right? Sunny, beautiful California, and
Yep.
the store you went to buy beer didn't have any Mexican beer. I find that hard to believe that in California you can't get a Mexican beer.
Yeah. Yeah. I just happened. So I was kind of in um, a special situation because I was helping my wife to take care of something. She's getting all of her vaccines and things like that. So she's trying to do her immigration stuff, and they're requiring her to get all these vaccines. So I was actually in a Walgreens. Walgreens is called. It's like a C. I think is this CVS in Vancouver or Canada?
Like
Walgreens.
a
It's not called
pharmacy.
Walgreens, right?
No, it's no, it's
No, no,
called. We got like a
no.
London
Like
Drugs.
Rexall or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
London
Or
Drugs. Yeah, I
London
don't have
Drugs or
that, but
something like that.
yeah. So I was in a Walgreens and I couldn't get to a beer store. Yeah, I probably could have gone to just like a Walmart or Target and totally got my Mexican beer, but I was kind of short on time, so that's why I was like, this looks not bad. But I didn't want to break up the unity, so I was hoping you guys could get the Stella too. But it's all right.
Yeah,
Diversity is
it's
always
okay.
good.
There we go.
It is. And I'll just say that
Turn this
I
into a teaching moment.
exactly. I'll just say that I'm impressed by Modelo for the Mexican beers that you can get. Modelo is probably the better of the 4 or 5 that we can get up here in Canada anyway. I know there's probably more selection down in the States, but I find Modelo is like a little step above the others.
Well, that's good to know. You're the beer connoisseur, man.
Well, I don't know about that, but we're all trying on this show. We're all trying to be beer connoisseurs. So Drew, thanks for coming out today. Just so the audience gets a little flavor, a little taste of who you are, and you're more than just an American. You spent a little time in Canada, but can you just like maybe share kind of like your world travels and all the places that have kind of influenced your life, from where you've been.
Oh yes, I definitely have an identity crisis when it comes to nationality. In Canada, I'm very, very American. In America, I'm very, very Canadian. In Korea, I'm definitely not Korean. Yeah, so that's just to introduce a little bit of myself. Yeah, so I'm originally from Texas, and that's another country in and of itself. Also, different from differentiating from America. But yeah, so originally from
Whereabouts in
Texas, Dallas, Texas, and I ended up marrying a Torontonian. My wife Sarah, she's a was born in Toronto, but she grew up in Vancouver, and so we know there's a little bit of difference between Vancouverites and Torontonians. You guys could probably
Oh,
shed light on that.
absolutely.
Yeah, and
But you
uh,
you said it
and so,
correctly.
but my
You
wife is
dropped
so I'm
the second.
Taiwanese American. My parents are ethnically Taiwanese, and that's a very confusing culture as well. And my wife is Korean, yeah, Korean Canadian, and I so because I married Sarah, I lived in Vancouver for 3 4 years. I also lived in Montreal, Quebec, for almost 3 years, and then from
Oh
there,
wow.
um, yeah, I guess y'all didn't know that, but and then I lived in Seoul, Korea, for 5 years, and then from there went to Taipei, Taiwan, for 3 years, and then from there came back to Vancouver um, to live for another 3 years, which is where the three of us got to be friends at the church that I served at. So yeah, that's my occupation, as you would say. I'm a minister, and this it's part of the reason why I've traveled to all these different countries and lived to all these different countries. Yeah, I have. So I've been married for over 15 years now. Got 4 daughters: Jordan, Caitlin, Vivian, and Eden, who have passports to 3 different countries. And that's not to boast; it's actually a lament. It hurts my heart, all the passport fees
Yeah.
that I have to pay.
uh, can I ask you about more than just being a husband, more than being a kind of a world traveler, being a pastor that goes to all these places and drops nuggets of truth and helps out people in all these locations. What specifically is it like being a dad who is dragging their children and their family all over the place? I know that's probably not the right frame, but sometimes it must feel like you're just dragging your children and not putting down roots. What does that feel like as a dad?
Yeah, on many levels, obviously, it's very, very challenging when your environment's constantly changing. But I think it offers a lot of. It's very enriching at the same time. Um, so in my family, it really requires my family to be very anchored with one another, and so that's part of the the benefit, I guess, of moving and living in so many different countries. And so, to be honest, it's very, very, very hard. As far as um, communication challenges, feeling like I'm able to take care of my kids and kind of um, just facilitate a good upbringing for them. But it's every day I'm kind of having to depend on a higher power, beyond my own capability and beyond my own competency. And so in that sense, it's really good as well. So uh, I'm always having to not think very highly of my own abilities.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Drew. Um, what's it like having four daughters? Like the world we live in, all
Yeah.
this stuff. When you're traveling, what's it like having four daughters? Being a dad
Uh,
of four girls, man.
yeah. The way I would describe it like this, Stu, how many I mean, you have two now, right?
Yeah. So one boy, one girl.
One boy, one girl. Okay. But
Yeah.
and both of you are y'all have two. So y'all call me your
Yeah.
sensei. I'm your sensei.
Yeah,
But
We're here to
that's
learn.
right.
yeah,
Just
Teach
keep
us
like
what
going.
you know,
parents
man.
that
Teach us
complain
what
with
you
one
know.
or two. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
So y'all can complain to other parents with one or two kids, but y'all can't complain around me. All right.
don't come, don't come to you.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah. What's it
so I
like
put
trying
it
to
like this:
connect
what's it
with
like to have
four daughters? What's it
four
like?
daughters? Yeah, I would say, you know, imagine if you have four movies going on at the same time on TV, all of different genres. So let's say you got one comedy, one drama, one horror, and one cartoon, all going on at the same time, and
All
you're
right.
having to
This
juggle between the four.
I love this. I love this analogy. I love this analogy. So now I want you to tell me. You have $4, oldest to youngest. What genre of movie are your daughters, oldest to youngest? So starting with the oldest and work your way down.
Oh man. Okay, okay. Hopefully they won't watch this later. I should caveat, kids change, and so this doesn't mean it's a static thing. In case my daughters were watching this one day, um, things change, so it's not like it's not black and white. So I have one 14-year old right now, so she would definitely be the horror film, meaning you just things kind of jump out at you, uh, you know, and I'm gonna get myself into trouble because all I'll say is men and women are different. I have four girls, so I feel like I have a right to, say this. I'm not going to say how they are different, but they're different, So communication styles. So I'm having to depend on my wife quite a bit for translation with my teenage daughter. So and then so that's 14, and then my next one, she's 10 years old, Caitlin. So you know how we have different daughters that they're all different, and some of them get along with me better, and some of them don't. So Caitlin is the most like my wife, and so we kind of our personalities complement, and so all the other girls they can kind of see that you know I tend to be just more patient. I tend to be more compassionate, and that's something that I'm working on too. Is like, okay, I can't be showing favoritism or and it's tough, But so I think for Caitlin, she's a very adaptive type of person. So um, I think she's one of those movies for me that just a good classic movie that I like like she would be like Gladiator or um, just a movie that I enjoy, you know, Gladiator.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
some of those '90s
Finding
action
Nemo or
flicks. You
something.
know what I mean? I love Remember the Titans.
Oh well, like
Uh,
Aladdin.
maybe even like Karate Kid. Who knows? So, and then I say Vivian. Vivian's very, very quirky, very instinctive, very um, creative, and so she'd probably be like a more of an artistic film. Um, and then Eden would just be she's very wild, and she's the youngest, so she's got the youngest kid delusional syndrome where the whole world revolves around her, you know, and
Nice.
she's probably the most fragile too. So Jordan's the toughest. I mean, she's traveled the world, um, and then my youngest is the most fragile because she's used to everybody, you know, catering to her and accommodating her. So, but for her, I would describe her as I mean, she'd definitely be like just a really bad cartoon that just, you know, like uh, what is it? That just does the same thing over and over and over again. Um, I'm trying to think, maybe like Ninja Turtles or uh, or Smurfs. You know, one of those that just it's the same plot over and over and over again. So that's kind of how it would, yeah. And imagine like
All
all
right.
four of those together at one time, and then it's like Groundhog Day, you know, Groundhog Day over and over and over. So I don't know how many times I've read like the same book to them, like four times in a row. You know, I memorized, you know, um, Good Night Moon, and there's another Moo Ba La La La. And I've memorized all those books. That's a little bit,
Nice.
just a little bit of a glimpse
Yeah,
of
that's
my life. So
yeah.
there's a
I think it's
comedian.
great that
Sorry.
no, it's okay. I think it's great that that you know your daughter so well, and you know yourself so well that you can put a genre of film to each of your daughters. It might be make it easy, a little bit easier, maybe for you to be able to communicate to them too, having that you know that just that vision, that view of them, right? So not that it's a bad view, and they change. I'm sure they're all going to have their dramatic phases and their action phases and that sort of thing. So yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, you were mentioning about the comedian. How what? Explain more about that.
Oh, I was gonna say one of my favorite comedians, Jim Gaffigan. He has this line, you know,
Oh, I love that guy.
yeah. He says because he has four kids as well, and then he says people
Five
ask him
now,
all
I
the time,
think.
"What's it like to have four kids?" And he said, "Imagine you're drowning, and then someone hands you a baby." He says it like that, and
So true. Oh
that's pretty
man.
much my life, you know. So every day it's just a
So now, Drew,
whirlwind.
what would be your movie?
What's that, Stu?
What would be your life movie? What would be your life movie?
My life movie.
Yeah, like you've described for your daughters. Now, what would be yours?
Oh, I'd have to think about that. I think I go in and out. You know, sometimes I just have to. I become like Denzel Washington in Training Day. I can get very jaded, and uh, and then sometimes I could be like Denzel Washington. Remember the Titans? I have to become like the coach, start screaming at everybody. You know, yeah. But I have to go in and out.
So, kind of a Denzel type.
Yes, yes,
Definitely a Denzel type.
definitely a Denzel type. Yeah. Um, but you know, but I don't like that about myself.
Oh well,
But I'm learning
looks
I
like
can't be Denzel. I've got to
Stu
be
and Drew dropped offline. So
I've got to be
while we wait for them to
Mr.
come back, I
Rogers.
want to thank you listeners for tuning in today.
Did
Yep.
Justin just go off?
Hopefully, here we go. Here's
He's
Stu and
coming back.
Drew. We're all back. Ah, it showed that you guys were offline. Was it showing me offline?
Yeah. Yeah. We were still.
Ah, technology. I love how technology connects us together, but also quickly separates us as well. Yeah. So I like this topic of genres of movies that we're in. So Stu and I are probably life experience. We're very similar. Both of us have an older child and a fairly young. Mine's a few weeks old. Stu's a few months old. His youngest. So Stu, what genre of movie are you living out right now?
Oh, I got to say probably Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
The
Okay.
second one where Marty is in the future and just everything's crazy around him, cuz that's kind of how I feel, and you're trying to figure everything out, and you have new experiences that you really don't have anything that you can draw on. So you're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that's great. I think for me, I think for me, it's I feel like I'm in kind of like a lost scenario. I know that's not a movie, but some days I feel like I'm a bit lost. Having a 4 year old, almost 4 year old, and then a newborn at home. Some days I just feel like, I just can't wait to go to bed. Can't wait for the day to be over, and then start again. Groundhog's Day is a movie that comes to me right now. So everything kind of feels the same over and over and over again. So yeah, yeah. Um, Drew, you know, another looking. Looking a little bit more towards what you some of the things you'd like to share, right? You've got great life experience. You've traveled the world. You've had four daughters. You have an amazing wife of 15 years. Um, can I ask you what you think you believe is the best quality, virtue or strength that a dad can have for his family?
Yeah, I think that's pretty easy. I think it's the quality of humility. Um, I think humility goes a long way because for me, you know, I make a lot of mistakes. I remember the first time I held a baby. You know, I treated it like a football. I could hold a ball like this, but I didn't know how to hold a baby like this. And it's a constant growth process. And when you think you're doing pretty well, you know, it's a new uh, another age or another stage, and then it's time to kind of adapt again and learn. So I think humility, it goes all around, not just from with dad and daughter relationship, but um, I think just as important the dad and mother relationship, the husband and wife relationship, or the father and mother relationship, or your partner. Um, just because for the benefit of the children, um, your partner, you all have to work together well, and it takes a lot of humility on both sides to um, acknowledge the other's good while also acknowledge your own limitations. And so I think that would be probably the secret ingredient that I would um, hope more for myself and give to others.
Yeah, I think though I really agree with you, but I think humility for men is very challenging. It's one of the hardest things for men to do, to as a virtue, as a strength to put forward, because most men, like our generation, no one taught us how to be humble, right? Like I know my dad didn't. My grandfather didn't teach me how to be humble. So to me, being humble is it's almost like a third language I'm trying to pick up, and sometimes I just don't quite understand it. Right? No one really showed me how to be humble. So I agree. I think if we as men can figure out how to be a little bit more humble, have that humility aspect, especially for our children moving forward, I think it's something that we can pass on to the next generation to improve their relationships and their parenting. Right? So
That's right, Justin.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just
Um,
talking to a lady yesterday that told me that she'd never had her husband ever say sorry to her before in her life. And then another, in another young girl as well I was talking to. She said her father never said he was sorry. Her father had never said he was sorry ever. And so I was kind of like, oh, I think that's one great just practical thing is just it's what I'm learning now is the character of a man. It's not so much that you're perfect and that you do all the right things. It's how you respond when you make a mistake and if you're able to recover.
Yeah.
And so I've had to
That's
say
really
sorry
good.
a lot to my girls.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important. Now, I'm going to follow that up with what is the most, can you remember the most recent time you had to say sorry to your children?
Oh
Maybe
my
not all of them,
goodness.
but like, what's the most recent time you had to say, hey, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I just had to do it yesterday. Oh yeah. Again, I feel bad for my oldest because she's like the guinea pig all the time, and then
Yeah.
the second, third, and fourth they get to reap the benefits of all that I've learned, and the case study of the first one, the laboratory of the first one. But basically, I was moving all this furniture. So by the way, just imagine I have five females in my home, so most of the physical, the manual labor is falls onto me. All right, I'm from Texas, so for me, even though I know it's not necessarily a rule that the man has to be the one that lifts the furniture. All right, but it just in me, it's hard for me to see somebody, a female, lifting suitcases and luggage, and then the men kind of standing around. You know what I mean? So my wife doesn't require that of me, but so we kind of butt heads on that sometimes. But so I was moving
Mm.
furniture and I was doing stuff for my girls' room, and and I usually don't ask for help. I usually don't like to ask for help. You know how guys are. We want to do things ourselves. I asked my oldest for help, and she just says flat out, she goes, no. She goes, no. What I didn't know,
What?
yeah, what I didn't know was she was really busy with school because she had homework. I assumed that she didn't.
Mm.
And her mind was elsewhere. Her mind wasn't in, but for me, I was like, at least you could say it in a kind way, right? At least you could explain, I would help you, Dad, but I can't because I'm in the middle of something. Can we do it later? Right. But she just flat out said no and walks off. Right. And I was just, I was, it kind of burned me up. And I just kind of started making comments about, well, you know, I guess you're not a very helpful, you don't like to be helpful to your dad, you know? And then she basically took it up a notch and she got upset. And then I got upset at that. And it was a full blown, and, we were both stressed out too. I wasn't, it was different. We were in a different state of mind. Um, and it got to where and I went to her room to try to talk to her about it. She tells me to get out of her room, and I just go off and I said, "Get out of my house." We just go there. We just went there.
Oh wow.
It was just, yeah. It was just like, and it was
Yeah.
crazy because it was out of
The
nowhere. We were both
the
just,
war has started.
yeah. It went from like 0 to 100, and it's because we're all, we have things brewing in our hearts, and we're not even conscientious of it. I call it fight or flight. A lot of families, they're in fight or flight if there's too much stress or they haven't been resting, or husbands and wives get into that as well, right? And so, and and it was one of those situations that escalated really quick, and then we both had to calm down. And then I was so distraught at myself. I was one of those like, what happened to you? Why were you being so just, And and when it comes down to it, I really think, and I had every reason. I could have justified myself. I'm the dad and she's the daughter. She should never disrespect me like that. Even if I asked you
Mm.
to do something, you should just do it. You should just be obedient, right? I could have, and but it's really tough as a guy because and a dad because I realized I'm living with a lot of my own preconceived biases about just men and women as well. You
Yeah.
know how a father should be treated with respect. And honestly, all that is like contrary to humility, right? And and it's very proud.
Yep.
It's a prideful sort of mentality. And so I had to honestly, you know how I talked about a source outside of myself. I really had to just like pray in my heart. I was like, because I think we didn't talk for like a few hours after it kind of after we stopped engaging, and then and so I started just like, okay, I need to humble myself, you know. And then finally, after a little while, maybe 2 3 hours, I just went into my daughter's room and I just said, hey, I just want to say I'm really sorry for what happened. Daddy was wrong, and the truth is, I think I was very hurt by you saying no, and then you had every right to say no because she said, well, you asked me a question, you know, so right, so why don't you just tell me to do something if you want me to do something, you know, and so yeah, you have a point, that's right, you know, and so I had to apologize, and that, you know, honestly, that's usually the regular pattern, and there are times when it wears down on me, you know, like, and I start having pride in that, you know, like, dude, I'm always the one that apologizes. It's time for you to apologize, you know. It's like, and so yeah, that was just recent. It was really good though because
Keeping
every time
score.
we, yeah, yeah, and so I apologized and we hugged it out, and it was a great sort of and we're continuing to evolve, and the communication lines are opened, and she still feels safe with me, you know, and and we're still working it out together.
And that's it, right? You gotta it's a communication's a two-way street. So both have to be willing to admit when they're wrong and to talk and really go through it. But yeah, I always find that I need a bit of a cooling off period sometimes, um, just to kind of get in the right headspace so that I can go and apologize and not be defensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
And
painful to do that, you know. But you know what's interesting, Stu, is that it's so painful to do it, but once you start, it feels really good afterwards. You know what I mean? It's like a load of bricks off your shoulders
Oh,
for some reason.
absolutely.
Yeah,
yeah,
so it's
yeah,
really
I
hard,
will
and
say
I realize
this.
that. Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I will say this. There's a difference in how I feel after my wife forgives me of something versus how I feel when my son forgives me of something. When I tell my son that I'm wrong and that you know that I shouldn't have done something, and I ask him to forgive me, I feel so much more lighter after that that incident with my son. I feel so much better when he says, "Daddy, I forgive you," because usually there's some snuggles that happen afterwards, and there's like, and we go and have a story. So I do feel like when you get that forgiveness from your child, it really is. Such a great, amazing feeling for us as dads to know, like, hey, we're impacting on such a deep level, our children on such a deep level. So yeah, I think it's also something I agree with Stu. You got to just take a few minutes every now and again just to collect yourself, and you know, so you're prepared.
Yeah, yeah, and we had a good follow up with my whole family, especially if you're in a high functioning job, or you're, you know, I imagine Stu or you guys just, I mean, it's very stressful if you have a stressful job where a lot of people are counting on you. You have high responsibilities, and then you come home and we expect moms and dads to be to be perfect, to be like Jesus all the time, you know, to be constantly patient,
Yeah.
100%, constantly kind, 100%, and so that's just unrealistic. And so I think it's important, this notion of just being gracious. And I had to sit down with my girls, and I was like, "Hey, you know what, Daddy? I think I can have a get out of jail for free card sometimes. You know, so occasion. I don't think human beings were meant to just repress all of our emotions inside. You know, and
No.
even for
No.
somebody else as well. Even for my daughters, I said, hey, I don't want to create this environment at home where we're like living in a museum. You know, where everybody's got to be like walking on eggshells around each other. And so let's just say, hey, occasionally, let's not make it, let's not normalize blowups, obviously. Okay. But occasionally, people are okay. It's okay to blow up sometimes. It's like, it's better than stuffing everything. So
Yeah.
we had that conversation last night too, or a few nights ago after that. And it was good. And then my daughter said, "Oh, we know, Daddy. We know you can have blowups." She's like, "Oh, you have five. You're living with five women at home." And so I was like, "Oh, you know."
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. There's a lot of
Yeah.
grace on me.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we forget as adults is that children have bad days. They can just wake up with headaches, and they don't have the vocabulary always to tell us. So sometimes they're just having a bad day. They woke up in the wrong side of bed, just like we do, and we expect them to be the perfect little individuals that never have things go wrong. And so I think it's really important for dads, especially, to give our kids that grace, and so that they have those moments where they can break down and then lean into us, so that we can bear that burden that they need someone to bear for them, especially our younger kids, right? And having a teenage daughter at 14, I can imagine that there's days when she needs to come home and just kind of like lean on you guys for support and get some of that, some of that bad day energy out, so that she can feel good again, right? So I think it's great that you guys have those open conversations. I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
Appreciate that, man.
Yeah. What's your favorite part of being a dad? You're a dad of four girls. You've talked about all the kind of stressful stuff and that comes along with it. What's your favorite part of being a girl dad? Right?
Man, girls are just so sweet and so just tender and are so just they just put their hearts out there for you. And so honestly, it's so hard for me to say what's my favorite. But I think anytime I find a a real connection point, like where we're connecting heart to heart, it's always my favorite. And it takes a lot of creativity to figure it out. And each of them are different. So I'm trying to figure out what my sort of connection point is with each of my daughters, and they're all very different. So, like just this past week, I have this dream where I'm like, playing ball with my girls, teaching them how to play sports and everything. But not all of them are sporty, and so and I have to deal with a little bit of comparison with each of them, and so I have to constantly be saying, all of you are different. It's okay, y'all have different smarts. You don't need to compare yourself with each other, you know. And so most recently, I found a way to play this game, like this game with ball. Like I have this pretty big ball. You can't do like a real football because not all of them can catch it. It's like different levels of
Yeah.
athleticism and abilities. And so I have this pretty big ball. It's like this big. It's soft, and I just throw it to each of them, and I let them take one step back, and it's like a little competition, and it's something that all four of them can play because I can kind of adjust the level of difficulty for each of them through me. But they can all play and they can all kind of compete with each other and all feel like that they're part of it, and it's not like one person dominating. So when I find those little gems of games where I can just be like a good dad to each of them, those are my favorite moments.
How, kind of building off of that, what you just said, how do you find, like, how do you build relationship with each of them when they're all so different?
Well, the first thing is that I'm, I don't know about you guys, but for me, my inclination is to just be lazy and just try to be efficient and like one size fits all. And that's just
Yeah.
not going to work. Yeah, communication style. Uh, from just temperament, you know, like one of my daughters, I can be a little more aggressive, and another one I can't. Some of them are much more sensitive, the others not as sensitive. So I think it just takes a lot of, again, like teamwork between my wife and I, because to be totally honest, like a few of my daughters, it's like they're like aliens to me, you know, and I actually have to rely on my wife to actually help me to understand her, and there's gender differences. There's obviously, my background, there's generational differences. Um, it's really cool. Lately, my girls have been appreciating me a lot more because we're back in America, we're back in California, right? And they've all thought I was like really, really, really weird because they're going to school, for instance, in Vancouver, and I'm very different from, and they come
Yeah.
home and they realize that I talk so differently, right? And then so it's interesting nowadays.
Yeah.
Nowadays, my daughters have been looking at me like, "Oh, you make a lot more sense, Daddy." Whereas before, they're always like, "You are so weird." You know, they constantly be like being embarrassed by me. You know what I mean? Like, like, why do you have to say that? Why do you have to talk that way? Why do you have to? And and so now they've been coming home. I've been noticing that they're kind of like looking at me like they're like, "Oh, that's why Daddy." And so, to be honest, so make a long story short, it takes a lot of energy. Um, and honestly, I recognize my limitation as well. So I do a lot of soul searching, and like I try to depend on a higher power, to help me, and he does. So I ask for help from my wife, and then I'm constantly working at it, and then I ask for help from a higher power just to give me wisdom for each of them.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that. I think those are all fantastic points. Now, just keeping an eye on the time. Right, the last question I'm going to ask you before we kind of end for the day, or end this session, is hopefully it's not a depressing question. It's a bit dark, but because you have four daughters, I think it might be a little bit applicable, right? One day we're all going to die. As dads, we're hopefully not going to outlive our children, um, and hopefully we get to spend a long time with our kids. But when you die, what do you hope that your children say about you?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm a pretty simple guy. It's pretty easy for me. I find that most people, especially guys and dads, I think we spend a lot of time in the material, wanting to pass on to our kids the material things, and that's kind of where we spend most of our time, and kind of thinking that, oh, we got to pass on material things to our kids. And my value system is that it's not just material. And so for me, really, the ultimate is the issue of love. Is that when I die, my greatest desire is for my kids to know that I love them and I love their mom. And I didn't just say it, but that I lived it, and that they experienced love through me, and that they know what it's like to really, really be loved. And I know we use that word pretty, like, I love you, man. Just like people just kind of throw that out there, and it's like Valentine's Day. I love my girlfriend. It's like, until you cheat on me, that I don't love you no more. But it's kind of a superficial type of
Yeah.
perspective on love. But what I'm talking about is, you know what I mean, the type of love that just makes you break down when somebody feels like they really know you, and they love you with that sacrificial and pure friendship type of love. So that'd be my greatest hope, man, is that my girls all know that I love them, and that they really, and really they were loved well, that they felt, they experienced that tangible love. And it's not just, oh, I know my daddy loves me, like in his heart he had good intentions, you know what I mean? That sometimes we excuse people. I know he loved me, even, but he had good intentions, but he kind of fell short. But I really hope they were like, you know what, my dad really, I felt a very deep love from him.
Yeah, that's beautiful words, Drew. Thank you so much for sharing. Stu, any last words before we shut her down?
No, it's all good. Thanks very much again, Drew. And we'll have to get together again for another Modella or Stella or whatever you got in the fridge.
Whatever you got in the
No, love you
fridge.
guys.
Yeah, awesome.
Appreciate
All
you.
right. All right. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Dad Life. And cheers to your week, your weekend. And I hope whatever, if you get anything from this, I think Drew's last words were perfect. Love your kids, unconditionally. Pour it out, pour it into them. You can't overlove your kids too much. All right. Thank you very much. And goodbye, everybody. Happy whatever day this is, and enjoy your week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Peace.